Farmers in Arkansas are crying out to the feds for stimulus money like it's open mic night. And look, I get it, because times are hard everywhere. But when you plant your crops, raise your cattle, take on the risks of farming, I mean, wasn't that a personal business decision?
Hey, Arkansas farmers, Arkansas, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You all voted to allow all of this to happen. You all raised against China. You all raised against the rest of the world. But you want China to buy your soybeans and your whatever the hell you produce. Yeah, the people that you despise, you want them to buy shit from you, right? That's not how the world works. And since you hate socialism, no money for you. Because socialism means taxpayers' money is shared. But you don't want that. So I suggest, Miss Arkansas farmer, that you pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's what you wanted everybody else to do. And if you think the countries that you despise want to buy your produce and your hogs and your chicken and your soybeans, they're not buying American products because of your hate-filled MAGA agenda.
Welcome guys to today's video. I'm your host Kisaka. Today we'll be looking into the struggles facing Arkansas farmers in 2025. I've prepared my notes. We are going to explore why many producers across this state of Arkansas are pleading for emergency help, how a perfect storm of events pushed them to the brink, and why this moment has been called FAFO season. Before we go further, kindly view this clip, then I'll come back with an in-depth dissection of the struggles of Arkansas farmers. Kindly remember this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Farmers are making a cry for help before it's too late. Countless farmers gathered to speak to representatives of Arkansas leaders to share the urgency that something needs to be done about the current state of farming. Jake Tester was at the meeting and now joins us in the studio with more. Jake.
Many farmers spoke up at the meeting, and the message was straightforward. They need help, and they need it now.
Trump, you looked at me, sir, and you said, I love you. Mr. Trump, I need to see the fruit of your love.
Farmers in crisis align way out the door of the Woods Chapel Baptist Church in Brooklyn as hundreds of farmers from not only Northeast Arkansas, but from across the state came to voice their concerns about the current state of farming. Representatives from U.S. Congressman Rick Crawford, U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, and U.S. Senator John Boozman's offices were in attendance to hear those concerns. Among those farmers in attendance was a farmer in Woodruff County, Chris King. He told me this was his 39th harvest, and he has never seen it as bad as this.
And I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
For King, the main problem starts with the fact that they can't sell for profit.
I just would like to see somebody help us get our markets back. We need our exports, and we just need to be paid for what we do. And that's not happening. And we're in real trouble.
But that is not the only issue. King's wife, Melissa King, and farmer in Biggers, Arkansas, Scott Brown, said they are struggling to afford the cost that is needed just to take care of the farm.
The prices that we're getting now are prices like they were when we were children, and what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now. I mean, the price of a combine when we were kids was, in the 20,000s, and now it's 100,000.
I farm 800 acres by myself. I can't afford any help. I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. How's the guys farming 5 and 10,000 with 20 hands and $1 million combines and $1 million drills going to make it work?
But for Brown, there is something that rounds out all the issues that they are facing: the tariffs.
I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm. when you try to sell a product, okay, U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans without the tariff to China are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans at the current market. But when you put the tariff on top of them, Brazilian beans are cheaper.
Farmers are now begging. Farmers are begging for the current administration to make a trade deal with China for soybeans. Begging. There is no trade deal. It's the end of August for soybeans for farmers in the United States. Do you want to know what percentage that we sent to China? 60 to 70% of soybeans were sent to China. China has moved on. China has moved on to Brazil. China has made deals with everyone else. China has put this administration on ignore. But I don't want you to feel sorry for farmers. Do you know why? Because he did exactly this to farmers for soybeans, losing them about $10 billion in 2018. Please Google this. Please Google it. And they voted for him again. And a lot of them say they would vote for him again, even though bankruptcies are the highest they have been in years for farmers. There are no trade deals for soybean, nor will there be. China, checkmate. U.S., zero.
So, how can this be fixed?
In the short term, they have no choice but to mail us a check. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars, but nobody wants to go broke. Nobody wants to lose everything. Long term, we have to have options, markets, and places to sell our product.
Now those representatives in attendance will be taking these concerns they heard to Washington, D.C. to share with the government leaders so they can try and find a way to solve this problem before it's too late. Reporting in the studio, Jake Tester, K8 News.
Northeast Arkansas representatives of Senator Bozeman, Tom Cotton, and Representative Crawford released the following statement saying in part, quote, "These reforms and investments, once implemented, will help address economic challenges and natural disasters to preserve family farms. Our delegation will continue to work closely with them, state leaders, and the Trump administration to help address their concerns and protect Arkansas's farming heritage and outlook," end quote.
So the people who say no handouts just lined up for a handout. Now tell me why farmers in Arkansas are standing outside with their hands out again, begging Uncle Sam for money. See, when it's regular people struggling, rent too high, groceries too ridiculous, can't afford health care, the answer is always from these people: stop complaining, stop asking for handouts, and pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Farmers in Arkansas are crying out to the feds for stimulus money like it's open mic night. And look, I get it, because times are hard everywhere. But when you plant your crops, raise your cattle, take on the risks of farming, I mean, wasn't that a personal business decision? So why is it on me and you to make sure that that decision keeps paying out? Because, see, when you and I make bad decisions, government doesn't cut us a check to make it right for us. Now, let's connect the dots here a little bit. These are the same people voting for the same politicians who say government is the problem. Yet as soon as the tractors stop running and their profits dry up, government magically turns into a solution for them. Ain't that funny and ironic? The question is, do we owe farmers any help? Or do they need to practice what they preach? Figure it out. Tighten that belt. Leave taxpayers out of it. Because last I checked, it's really not our problem to fix somebody else's gamble.
So for those of y'all who've been keeping up with recent events as it relates to the farmers, right? We talked about Nebraska, and then we talked about Iowa. And all of these farmers, you know, are losing their minds because they're losing their farms and, you know, they're scared. Well, let me tell y'all what I heard today. So the lobbyist groups for the farmers are proposing another bailout of $16 billion. The last time Syphilitic Sid did this in his first administration, they received a whopping $24 billion in bailouts. Well, this time around, Syphilitic Sid said he doesn't know if he can do that. He's not sure that that's something that they can accommodate. Look, I love the farmers. The farmers are wonderful. They farm, right? They farm. But, you know, we're trying to cut fraud and waste and a lot of unnecessary spending. So now these people and their lobbyists are trying to get bailouts. But what I want to understand is, what happened to you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps? What happened to we voted for him because he's a great businessman? What happened to we're going to put our trust in him because he's going to help us? Help y'all do what exactly? Lose your farms? Yes, that part. Because you know who invests in these companies that buy up bankrupted farms? Your vice president. So, to all you farmers that voted for this, thinking it was going to be like the last time and he was going to give y'all a bailout and y'all would get those subsidies to support yourselves and your farms and your families, it's not coming. Not this time around. It's not coming. You can just forget it. So, I wish you well. I hope it works out for you. Maybe, you know, somebody can whisper in his ear and change his mind. You know, you might want to reach out to Ivanka because she's his favorite and he listens to her, I guess. But they're not really speaking, you know, ever since like the insurrection. But I don't know. This is just word on the street. You know, it's just gossip. But you didn't hear it from me.
Let's look at the Arkansas agriculture at a glance. Arkansas ranks among the top states in the United States in terms of agricultural output. Each year, it produces over 1.4 million acres of rice, plus vast fields of soybeans, corn, cotton, and poultry. These crops feed the nation of the United States and fuel rural economies from the Delta to the Ozarks. Family farms passed down for generations dot the landscape. Many began as small homesteads and grew into regional powerhouses. Their success builds local towns, supports hardware stores, and sustains community schools. Yet these same farms now face unprecedented pressures. Costs have soared, markets have shifted, climate extremes have struck. In a single season, long-held traditions and livelihoods have teetered on collapse. Let's look at some of the storms that have hit Arkansas. In the year 2025, April, Arkansas experienced a historic flooding. A record-breaking floods swept across Arkansas. Torrential rains flooded rivers, creeks, submerging more than 260,000 acres of farmland. Rice paddies lay underwater for days. When the waters receded, farmers counted at least $78 million in crop damages. Nearly all rice fields were lost. Those flooded acres represented months of planting, tending, and care. For many growers, it meant zero harvest and zero income. Also, they have faced the problem of price collapse. At the same time, global grain prices fell to their lowest levels since 2020. Corn, soybeans, and wheat markets slumped as worldwide demand weakens. And that drop cut into already thin profit margins across the Delta. Rice growers fared worse. Rice prices tumbled by around 40% compared to last year. Farmers who once counted on stable returns found themselves facing deep losses before a single bag of grain sold. On the input side, prices for fertilizer, diesel fuel, seeds, and machinery parts spiked. Supply chain disruptions from the pandemic and the war in Ukraine drove up costs of nitrogen fertilizer and diesel. Those inputs represent critical expenses every planting season. In 2025, the expense of running a farm outpaced any reasonable expectation of income. Experts noted no workable budgets existed for raw crops, corn, soybeans, cotton for the first time in 25 years. Also, with the trade tariffs adding insult to injury, massive tariffs of Mr. DT on the US crop exports took effect in the early 2025. A sudden 125% tariff on grain sent to China, a top buyer of Arkansas rice and soy, collapsed overseas demand. Contracts were cancelled and promised revenue vanished overnight. Farmers had banked on export markets to bolster income. Instead, they watched trucks roll away empty and bills pile up on the desk. The human cost. These economic hits translated into heartbreaking numbers. By the end of first quarter of 2025, 88 Arkansas farms had filed for bankruptcy, nearly double the 45 that filed in all of 2024. For many, this was a last resort to manage insurmountable debt and looming foreclosure notices. State farm groups warn that without emergency aid, as many as 1 in 3 Arkansas producers could file bankruptcy by spring 2026. That statistic means whole communities could lose their breadwinners and local economies could collapse under lost payrolls and shattered grain elevators. On September 4th, 2025, nearly 500 farmers gathered in Brookland, Arkansas to share fears and plead for help. They came from every corner of the state, some driving 3 hours or more. At that meeting, voices trembled as men and women explained they had exhausted every resources. Some pulled equity out of land, others maxed out of credit lines. Now nothing left could keep them afloat for another year. You may be wondering, why are they begging for handouts? One of the reasons that is forcing them to do this is because of delayed safety net payments. Under current farm policy, safety net subsidies exist, but farmers can't access them until 2026. A landmark support package in Congress promises payments, but legislators delayed the rollout. For 2025, that left producers without protection against deep losses. They're doing this also for the lack of ad hoc aid. Farmers stress they need ad hoc emergency funds right now, one-time payments to cover this year's shortfalls. Without those, bills like equipment leases, seed orders, and loan interest cannot be paid. Those missed payments lead to late fees and damaged credit, compounding disaster. Also, it is because of loans and grants that are too slow. The local USDA Farm Service Agency FSA offices offer low-interest loans and cost-share grants, but tight budgets and staffing freezes slowed processing. Requests for disaster relief stayed pending while fields lay barren and banks sent foreclosure warnings. Looking at some of the personal stories of these farmers in that meeting, one of the farmers, Derek Kegwood, a third-generation rice farmer, said his rice yields collapsed after the floods and he could not pay seed suppliers. On the other hand, another farmer known as Chris King, who farms in Woodruff County, warned that without emergency funding, 1 in 3 peers could be forced to walk away from the land this harvesting season. These pleas go beyond pride. They are cries for survival. Truly, actions have consequences, and those who push certain policies may see blowback in both politics and business. FAFO season for sure signals a time when consequences arrive in full force. You know, many of these Arkansas farmers once supported trade tariffs, the promise of high commodity prices, and headline agricultural stances. They believed those policies would shield them from cheap imports and unfair competition. Instead, a swirling mix of tariffs, trade wars, and global market shifts sent prices plunging. Weather disasters struck harder with thinning safety nets. The very tools meant to protect them turned on their finances. Arkansas growers now confront a bitter lesson. Backing policies without understanding ripple effects can backfire. This is FAFO season for the heartland. The policies farmers cheered have in part set the stage for today's emergency. It's not about assigning blame to one group. It's about recognizing that bold decisions, tariffs, spending cuts, delayed subsidies have real human costs when the fallout hits. What is the way forward, and what are some of the calls to action? The government should take the following steps. 1. They need to approve emergency ad hoc payments before year ends. 2. 2, they need to unlock delayed safety nets, subsidies, and allow early access for 2025 losses. 3, the US government should increase staffing and funding at FSA offices to speed disaster relief. 4, the government should review tariff policies with farmers at the table to prevent unintended market collapses. On the other hand, the community, both the MAGA and anti-MAGA supporters, should buy local. When you purchase Arkansas grown rice, soybeans, and produce, you send dollars directly to the struggling families. The effects that are currently taking place is affecting both the black community and the white community. So it's good to just support buy local. And I understand the black communities are the people who in most cases support most of these shops without discrimination, without any bigotry. Also, as a community, you need to volunteer or donate to farm assistance programs like local food banks or non-profit loan funds. Also, both the whites and the blacks should encourage the members of Congress to prioritize farm relief in upcoming budgets. So Arkansas farmers stand at a crossroads. Historic floods, trade policy misfires, and skyrocketing costs have pushed them to the brink. Their pleas for emergency funding are not cries for handouts, but calls for fairness and survival. This moment is favor season, a stark reminder that decisions in Washington and on the world stage come home to roost in rural Arkansas. It's time for Americans everywhere to stand with these growers, neighbors, essential food suppliers, and true stewards of the land. Thank you for watching. Share this video to raise awareness. Tell your representatives that Arkansas fields and farms are worth saving. Until next time, God bless. This is the video for today. If you're not subscribed, kindly do me the favor of subscribing to this channel. Until next time.